Early in 2020, I noticed my water heater had pooling water near the cold water inlet. With that, it didn't take long for the water to start pooling at the base of the water heater. Since this is a 15-year-old unit, my guess is corrosion has got the best of it. I let it sit like this for 2 or 3 months, which wasn't a good idea. Had the inlet gave out, I'd had a basement full of water. Not only would it have been a mess, but it had been costly. But I spent that time trying to decide if I was going to call a plumber to come out and do the job, or if I was going to try to tackle it myself. I have zero experience dealing with water heaters, but thankfully there's plenty of help on YouTube, so I decided to do it myself. So my next goal was to find a water heater with the exact same specs, that way I could just easily swap them out. So I went to Lowe's and Home Depot to check the prices. They have different brand names, but the costs are about the same. I ended up going with the one from Home Depot because the clerk in that department was very helpful, and they helped me load it too. And where it's coming out at is right here. See where it's rusted real bad, it's leaking there. So I've got to go to work, but one thing that I want to do this morning is go ahead and get the power off and get the hose hooked up and start draining this thing, so when I get home I can switch this out. And I've got a brand new one right here. We'll see how easy or how hard it's going to be to install a little bit later, but got this, so you can tell the power is in fact on. Let's see if the power to the water heater is in fact power to the water heater. So water heater here. And we appear to have the power off. I'm going to pull my truck out, and then I'll attach this water hose, drain it outside. I'll show you guys that, and we'll be back in a second. Alright, so the next step is going to be to cut the water off to the water heater. Water hose is hooked up. It's running outside. Hey, buddy. You can hear that? So there's no hot water coming out. Alright, so now I'm back home from work, and a little bit of water came out. It's basically just enough to get trapped in the hose, and then when I kind of readjusted the hose, some came out. So not a whole lot of water. I'm going to say that this thing's probably stopped up with sediment. As you can tell by the color of the water, it looks that way. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to cut off the water to the house and drain the lines, just because I've never done this before, and better safe than sorry. Alright, so I was just setting up to start something else, and I could hear something, water moving in here. I'm not sure if it's because I opened up the upstairs valve or because I turned the water off, but my water hose started spitting out water. So I had to get it outside. We got a pretty good flow. What is So I'm gonna let this drain, and I'll be back with you guys as soon as I think it's drained. Alright, so we're about 25 minutes into it, and this thing is still gushing water. So I'm gonna go read these for a little bit and then try to figure out what I'm gonna do with this. It's gonna be too long. Alright, so it took a good 2 hours for that thing to get finished draining. So we're completely drained, and to fix my supply pipe problem, I actually went out and bought some new ones, which are going to go something like this. So these are some new supply lines. They're a little bit longer, and the goal is I'm going to go above my cutoff here, and this one's got another cutoff on it. So I'm going to fix that problem of only having about this much room to cut off, and then that's just too short, especially with this one being quite a bit higher. So got this and this, and we'll install it in a minute. But first, let's take this drain pipe off. First let's take this hose off here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this here, so I can take this out and then put the new one underneath, and then take the measurements on the new piping. Oh shit. Alright, since I'm going to have to cut above the cutoff here, I went ahead and opened it up to make sure there's no water in it, and there was quite a bit. Actually, I made another mess, and then I put this bucket down here, and as you can see, it's about a third of the way full, and we got a slow drip here, so I'm going to let this drip out. I'm going to move my new water heater underneath and take measurements for the new supply lines, the new connectors, and try to get those on there tonight. Alright, so our water has stopped leaking. I'm going to try to position this thing. So I had originally bought 2 of these, but as you can see, trying to keep this cut off, this would have been very impossible, been a lot of kinks. So the solution is about this. It's got its own cut off. I'm going to be able to cut it up above here, and then still have a cut off. So that's the goal. Now we're just going to make some measurements. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I've just kind of set this in here, and I want to take just a measurement. I don't want it to be exact. My goal is probably to pull this forward a little bit, have just a little bit of kink in there so that I don't cut this too short, because I can't make this longer, but I can play around with bending it around if I'm not perfect. So I've never done this, so let me go watch a YouTube video to see how far copper pipe goes down into this, because that's, as you can see, I mean, if it comes down to here, or if it just comes up to here, I could definitely make a bad cut. So let's figure that out. I'll be right back. Alright, so here's what I've done. I can't tell in this one where it goes. On the website it says about 1 inch deep into the shark bite is how far the tubing will go. So I mean, you're talking here, but to be safe I'm going down a little bit more. I'm going to go to this bottom line that's 17¼ inches from the top of the water heater. That's going to allow me to basically, when it goes in, pull it forward a little bit like this, and then give it a little bit of bend. That way I don't go too short. You know, so this one here is also 17¼ so I'm going to do both of those there. Yep, so let's start that. And so one important thing is make sure that you're level here. Don't make a crooked cut. Should be money. This on the side, so we'll go something like this. Alright. Here's my 17¼ inch mark. Just wiggle that loose. Like that. And there we go. The guy at Home Depot said, on these connections, put Teflon tape, plumber's tape. Watch videos that say because there's a rubber O-ring in here, you don't need to do that. Best I can tell is you don't need to put Teflon tape on here because this is a compression fitting. So we're going to go with that, and then if it leaks, we will think about adding the tape. So we're not going to hook up the electrical until we fill this tank. So one thing, once you get this hooked up, before you turn the water on, you need to make sure this valve is closed. We don't want water shooting out of this thing. We're going to try it, see how many water shoots out. Cut off. Let's go turn the water on. Alright. So far so good. You can hear the water coming through. Sounds like water's getting into it now. Which is a little concerning, but let's turn this on. Definitely water coming in now. But no leaks. Alright, so I'm going to let this thing fill up until I can't hear water going into it. I'm going to turn on the hot water upstairs. I'm going to let everything go for a good 5 minutes. I'm about to show this. So when you turn the hot water on the faucet, when you're filling up your water heater, it's going to do this. And that is all the air releasing out of the hot water heater. So leave this on until water's coming out. So red to white, black to black. Red to white, black to black. Always take a picture of what it looked like before. Do have a new nut this time. Alright, so let's go turn the power on. Water heater on. Alright, let's go see if we got hot water. So the main thing I was checking here was to make sure water would come out when I turned it on hot, and it did. But of course, it's going to take between an hour to 2 hours before the water is actually hot. Due to the time, I went ahead and went to bed, woke up the next morning, and took a nice hot shower. If you enjoyed this video or if it helped out at all, please consider hitting the like button below and subscribe for future content. Thanks.